Hello, everyone. How you doing? We are live today from Points Unknown. I'm just in Pittsburgh, right across the street from the Console Energy Center.
There were a lot of wrestlers who were from parts unknown, weren't there?
Yeah. There was definitely a few. I'm trying to think. I think the Sika and Afu, they were from parts unknown. I think.
The Mass Destroyer, who was actually a guy from Buffalo, was always from parts unknown. There was Mr. X, who was
Mr. X was parts unknown. There were a good few ones. Yeah, there were a few good ones.
You know, if you can name a city, that would be a really fun thing to name a city, like Parts Unknown, Texas.
I bet you there is some place, and we know Jesse the Body Ventura is from parts unknown because nobody wanted to admit that he was from here.
That would be a great thing for you guys to put on your lower third if you had one.
Oh, we're gonna go there again. I see.
Mac.
Well then, I'm a little salty because mine still doesn't work.
Read between the lines.
I'm going to San Jose. I will talk to Google, and I will figure out what the hell's going on.
Feel like bang on your door.
I actually do have a meeting with Google. I actually do have a
meeting going on. It works fine.
I will find out what you need to do to deem yourself worthy.
I am worthy. I don't need to deem myself worthy. I freaking am worthy.
You are worthy, I know, but apparently, you know, it's just like lifting up Thor's hammer. You can't do it unless Google thinks you're worthy.
I thought I was worthy, but apparently Google says, no, you're not.
Nope.
I was worthy.
Okay.
I know. So, yeah, like I said to them before, and I showed them, my hotel room's a mess, but where you're looking at, it looks like I'm really perfectly good.
Oh, you just dropped the veil there. Why did you do that?
I'm bad at that.
You're bad.
But yeah, let's get on to this whole thing, and let's talk about the show. I didn't bring my bell. I don't travel with it.
Hold on. Actually, it worked out perfectly yesterday because since Russ was doing the show on his phone, right before we did the thing, he got a text message or something, and it made this loud, audible jump, so I could find the beginning of the show with absolutely no problem. So thank you, Russ. There you go.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, May 31st, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Jillian Fisher.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. Why did the echo start when we started introducing the show? Very strange. Anyway, I'm Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time or hereabouts. Sometimes earlier than this. We're a little bit late today. We're adjusting for the Pittsburgh time change. Pittsburgh is a half hour off, as you all know. They turn their half hour different. So yeah, out in Pittsburgh. So I'm here. Russ was here last night, and it was a fun game. And thanks to those who stopped by to visit between the second and third period, even though Russ blew you off completely.
I was there for like 7 or 8 minutes, not 5.
Okay, so this is like the really uncomfortable. This is like one of those things that meet up like this where you're just throwing it out there 10 minutes beforehand. Is like really funny. I've done this before, and it always is the same. Like you go there and you stand there for a while, extremely uncomfortably, waiting for. And fortunately, I had Russ with me, so I'm not just standing there by myself. I've done this where I'm just standing by myself, and that's.
I don't know why that's uncomfortable. I guess I'm weird though, and I
don't know. For me, I'm in a suit. Everyone's wearing everyone's wearing a bright yellow shirt. Like we're on the concourse, so everyone's just walking around, and I just look like a guy in a suit there. So I'm like.
People are staring. You don't like people staring, is what you're saying.
Right. Well, people are obvious. It's obvious that I am, different, right, at this time. So I'm standing there, and Russ comes out. Russ comes out and perfectly, and we're talking to each other and start showing pictures of our pictures of our dogs to each other on the phone as we try to figure out what to do while we wait for people to possibly arrive. Then there's a lot of people like standing around. And there was people over here looking at us, and we're wondering. Are they just looking at like, who are those freaks? Who are those freaks, kids? Or are they, the kind of thing? Or they want to come and say hi, but they don't really want to come. They feel weird coming up to us, even though I said come up and say hi. Which actually was true. Like 2 of the people that were over here, Russ, they just after you left, they came over. But so and then there were some other people. But when you say this too, you have to realize that people are all over the stadium, and it takes a long time to get to one specific section. So but I think the uncomfortable is just
like 7 minutes. That's ample time.
7 minutes is ample time to get from any part of the arena.
7 minutes is not ample. No. I think Mike's agreeing with me. I think.
Yeah, Jillian. The thing is that if I was there, there would have been no problem. Everybody would have thronged. They would have just come in. They would have recognized us. There would have been no problem.
They would have been flocking for you, right?
This is where you want a woman with you, buddy. This is where you want a woman. This is like, I've done this before, and I did meetups with Julie back in the day. And if I did a meetup, it was one thing. If I said, come meet Julie and I, it's a totally different thing.
Well,
so,
that's been a problem with me for a while, so we're not going to go into that. So.
I know. So you need a woman for lots of things, but if nothing else, for meetups. That's the most important reason to have a woman in your life. Meetups.
There you go.
You guys are like you like to open these cans of worms, don't you? If you really do. Do you like? Is it you want to see what happens when you say things?
Yeah.
I'm messing with. I know you guys are not like that.
I'm gonna revolutionize the
we can do it is like you're cool without knowing that we're weird, and that's all fine. So.
What was that? What was that?
I'm gonna revolutionize the meetup here. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'll be there game 5. If you want to say hi, send a message or just tweet it out, and I'll come by and I'll say hi in that area, section 120. I'll be there. I'm not going anywhere.
Just wandering around. We'll be there.
I went shopping. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Did you get anything good? That's my question.
Nah, I mean, I almost bought a game puck, but that was it.
From every Stanley Cup Finals I've covered. I didn't get one yet, but
do a better job with just Stanley Cup merchandise at the arenas. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah. I'd like to see something new, and except for coins and pucks, like just something different. There wasn't anything different.
They could do scarves. Guys know. Oh, my scarf is missing. Sorry, I forgot to put my scarf. They could do scarves.
Scarves are good.
Yeah, like I'm going to buy a pashmina scarf, right?
It's not pashmina, bro.
Don't get angry.
I'm not angry. I was just. I can tell you what it is. It is.
I don't think I would just say that no one in our crowd.
It's 100% acrylic.
Yeah,
so.
it's burlap. That's what it is. Sorry.
Like if they had a Stanley Cup phone case, maybe I would have bought it. Like things like that.
They should sell these things. I'm obsessed with these things. The light up wristbands. They could make a fortune off of those.
I might have bought one of those. Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like people would actually buy these if they didn't give them out. So they should buy because it has the logo on it. So they could just put like 2016 Stanley Cup Final, and there you go.
Right.
And if you bought them, you probably wouldn't throw it away. Like you would have a different attitude towards it. Would mean something to you, so you probably wouldn't throw it on the ice. Maybe. I don't know. All right, let's start the show up really officially here. We did already do the introduction, I think. Yeah,
we did that.
We're into the show. First of all, sad news, of course. Even though Russ is usually the one to talk about the deaths in the world, I'm going to start with that. No,
I mean, also laugh and a poor guy died.
I know. Rick McLeish passing away. We knew he was sick for a while. Yeah, it's a sad day for Flyers fans for sure. One of the key members of that. Probably the one key member who isn't retired. His number isn't retired from that Stanley Cup run. Would be him. He scored the winning goal against the Bruins to win the first Stanley Cup. But he's famous known for basically I just brought him up the other day, the Jonathan Drouin goal, which he scored the other day, which is the cutting across the ice, shooting against the green goal. That is what McLeish sort of made famous. And a good friend of mine who I grew up playing hockey with all the time would always do that shot on me. And I was a goalie and he was a shooter. And we would always call it the Rick McLeish move. That was Rick McLeish. So yeah, it's sad. He's a really good guy and. Thoughts go to his family and everything like that. Have you dealt with him at all, Russ?
Yeah, I interviewed him once for sure, and I kind of think when I got my knee worked on, when I was at the rehab place, that he was getting his knee worked on at the same time. I'm pretty sure. But no, he was a good guy. He was frustrating to root against because he could just score from anywhere on the ice, and he was just a great goal scorer. And to root against him was tough because you always were watching where he was on the ice because he was just one of those dynamic guys. And then I think, he went to the Oakland Seals and then the California Golden Seals at some point, right?
Yeah, so there was a San Jose connection kind of to him in a way. But yeah, no, that's really true. He was, and he's what people don't realize when quite often I would talk about the Broad Street Bullies that won the Stanley Cup, that this was a really skilled player that was on that team. They had a few of these really skilled players that weren't just all fighters, and this is Rick McLeish was not a fighter at all. I mean, this is the guy who I think maybe fought 2 or 3 times in his career, maybe, but.
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of unsung though because for being such a good scorer. I mean, he scored 50 goals once. He's almost scored 50 a second time, And when you think of the the Broad Street Bully Flyers, obviously you think of all the fighters. When you think of the sort of the scoring arm of that team, you think of Barber, Leach, and Clark. It's sort of almost, and it's sort of sad in a way. It's almost a secondary thought.
Yeah.
Rick McLeish, he was a very good scorer. I mean, a very good offensive player. And I looked it up, Russ. He played after Philly. Somebody's ringing the bell. After Philly, he played in Hartford for a year, played in Pittsburgh for parts of 2 seasons, went back to Philadelphia for a year, and then finished in Detroit.
So was he a SEAL before the Flyers?
No, he came up. He was drafted in 1970, and he debuted with the Flyers in '71.
And then confused with somebody else. Okay.
Reggie Leach.
Reggie Leach did. Yeah, I used to get Leach and McLeish confused as a kid, so I'm still doing it.
The names are so close.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. He was the smoothest skater on the Flyers team. He was smooth. He was just very, very smooth. It's hard to explain. Like, number 19, I always thought should have been retired, personally. But that was just one of the. You can't retire every number in the world, but at some point you have to stop. But
I don't know. They're doing a good job lately. They're on a roll.
Yeah, I know. I think this is a good one. I really, yeah. So that's Rick McLeish. There you have it. So moving on to last night's game. Let's get into last night's game. There was a couple thoughts that I had in the arena that to get a different kind of feel in the arena. First of all, the auxiliary press box that we set up in the arena is really so there's always the way these Stanley Cup Finals works. There's so much echo. Sorry, Mike. I think it's your side.
I'll log off and log back on.
They both muted, yeah. So the way this works, Mike to log off. the way this works is this. Usually there's just a press box, and you go to the press box. But in the Stanley Cup Finals and other major events like the All-Star Game, there's a ton of media there, and they have to create what they call an auxiliary press box. And generally, that auxiliary press box is a section of the stands that are taken out, and they put tables and chairs in there, and you have this auxiliary press box. And I love being in the auxiliary press box because you're in the crowd. You don't feel like you're isolated that way in the press box. You always have a better view of the game, and you really get a sense of what's going on. Like, for example, you could almost be knocked over by a giant stuffed penguin, walking by you, that kind of thing.
With an annoying drum, but that's beside the point.
Right, and he walked right in front of you, Rush. You could have punched him.
I know.
So we're down there, and but usually the auxiliary press box is like in behind a goal, way up high, and that's where it's been in Chicago and other places like that too. But the Penguins, for some reason, even going back to when they were in the Igloo, always put the auxiliary press box in the first level, and it's like so you're literally I'm in the corner. I mean, you're talking about like what would be $500 seats. I don't know why they're taking these seats out and not putting the press up higher, but I'm not complaining, right? Yeah, so we were in great. I really got a sense of the vibe of that arena and the vibe of those fans. And Penguins fans, you mentioned Russ. They were loud. They brought it. They are very, very loud.
They were great.
And but the one thing I noticed about them is a real sense of apprehension in the Penguins. And throughout the whole thing, this is a team that obviously went through a lot this year. You could sense it. That this is a very hot team right now. But there was a point when this team was really not good this year. And I think there's almost a feeling in the fans of like, is that going to come back?
Right.
At times, and you really sense it in the crowd for whatever reason. You just sense this. They're really into it when they're winning. But man, in that second period when the Sharks started taking it to them, it was fascinating.
Could it also be that the Penguins have yet to really have this dominating game all the way through? It always seems like teams are able to chip back at leads on them.
I think
they generally are winning. That's not the problem. But through the Caps and the Lightning series, they were always they were able to crawl back somehow. So there is that.
And that goes even further back into like the last few years when the Penguins have tended to get leads. 3-0 leads for the Penguins have always been death. They get a 3-0 lead and the teams come back on them all the time. So the crowd last night when the Sharks started coming back, there was this feeling of like, oh, this is a familiar thing. Okay, we've been here before. This is when our team starts to lose it. And it was really, I mean, for about the first 10 minutes, even the first 5 minutes, 5 to like 7 minutes of that second period, the Sharks were the Sharks. They were the Sharks that eliminated the Predators with crazy in Game 7, that eliminated the Blues. The rest of the game, the Sharks really weren't the Sharks. So it's hard to, now, and I go right today, Brent Burns, who's just amazing interviewing and hearing him, comes out and says, holy bleep, we're in the finals. That's the title of my blog today. And that's what he said. He said that's what he felt like when he got out there. He's like, holy bleep, we're in the finals. And the whole weekend, media day, Joe Thornton, there was a real difference between the Penguins and Sharks people talking, I felt. The Sharks guys were like, wow, we really are excited to be here. This is great. And they would always end the sentence with a caveat like, oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to say, but we still have 4 games to go. Like, we still have to win. We can't take it for granted yet. We haven't won anything yet. But the beginning of them was really like, this is really exciting. But the Penguins, you didn't get any of either. The Penguins were like,
actually, yeah. Justin Schultz did actually say that.
He did. Okay, so there's a new Penguin. There's a Penguin who hasn't been here before, right? So,
right.
But for most of them, they weren't saying we got to stay focused. It's funny to me. One person joked around with me one time in the media, an old guy who retired from who I really respected, who said that whenever a player says that they have to remain focused, they're not telling you, they're telling themselves. And I think that is very funny, and it is kind of true. Like, to sit there and say, he's saying, when the Penguins Crosby didn't have to say we still have 4 games to go. He's there, he knows that they have 4 games to go. He's not going to say that to you. Mike?
Well, I mean, the thing is that, and I joked about this after the first period. I said, obviously the Sharks thought that the game started at 8 p.m. Pacific because they didn't show up in the first period. They were completely absent.
Yeah.
You saw Pittsburgh, with the throttle full open and flying by the Sharks in the offensive zone, and I think actually Jones made a few saves that kept it 2-0 that enabled them to get back into the game. It was not the complete opposite in the second, but it was pretty close to being the complete opposite. Anybody who was at that home end of the arena got their money's worth out of their tickets because they saw all 5 goals last night.
By the way, that was not the end we were at. we were at the end where none of the goals were scored. Yeah. So we had a great season. We were at the opposite.
So I know we've said this too about this happens a lot with teams that play against the Penguins in the first period. I think some of the credit has to be given to the Penguins. I think that they are able to come out there and shock other teams. It's not. I don't even know if it's 100% the Sharks didn't show up. We said this about Lightning in Game 6. This Penguins team has that effect on other teams. They really do.
Well, I think in part the Sharks underestimated the Penguins in terms of their speed. I mean, they were clearly caught flat-footed. At least I
think they were sensitive. He did. DeBoer said they were standing around watching. He did. He said it. I mean,
you're watching, but who's going to underestimate the speed of the Penguins? I mean, the Penguins are coming in, and
it's one thing to be told that they're fast. Yeah. It's another to actually experience it.
Okay. I think it's like this, Ek. I think their game plan was, let's bottle them up in the neutral zone and we'll eliminate a lot of their scoring. But the problem was where they were trying to bottle them up, the Penguins were able to get around that with speed and really good passing. Right. And so when that failed, the defense of the Sharks had no idea what to do. For about 8-10 minutes in that period, really had no clue what to do. Now, they rebounded a little bit, but by the end of the second period, if it weren't for that Marleau goal, again, they were having trouble. They were on and off with their defense all game, and Paul Martin was starting to show his age, and that's another problem.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I think San Jose is going to have to do if they have a chance to win this series is, and they started to do this in the second period and maybe continued a little bit in the third, but I thought in the third it was Jones who kept them in and held the game 2-2 until the winning goal by Bonino. But the Sharks started to get physical, and I think they have more size. And I think they have the ability to go out there and they have to bang Letang in the corner. They have to hit guys like Cole, and they have to work on Crosby. Malkin, forget about it. He's too big. He's too fast. He's running over people like crazy. So I don't think you can really wear him down. But the smaller guys and the key guys on the Penguins, you've got to beat them into the ground if you hope to win the series. They started to do that a little bit in the second half of the game, but I think they have to do more of that if they have a chance to win.
But on that note, I mean, I've said it a lot too. This Penguins team, this was the most composed I've seen them thus far. They could have I've seen them get flustered when a team comes back and ties it after they've been dominating. You saw it maybe a tiny bit, but not, and that might have just been the emotions of the first game of the Stanley Cup final showing, but that was for that level of a game and for that high of an intensity, and they came back tied at 2-2. the Sharks were putting pressure on them. They didn't let their emotions get to them. If they can keep it at that level and the Sharks keep pounding them, it's going to be hard for the Sharks, because that was a big concern for the Penguins coming in, was the physicality of the Sharks coming in and getting under the skin of the Penguins. And if they can't do that a little bit, then that's going to be problematic.
It's a great point, and honestly, what makes these teams different, I've talked about it before, but I really see it again, is the teams that are left are the teams that are hard to knock out. That's really what it comes down to. In this playoffs, more than ever, it feels like, these are the teams that, this Sharks team, they Predators almost knocked them out, but they didn't. They had to get through the Kings, of course. They beat the Blues, who beat the Blackhawks. I mean, this Sharks team is a very tough team to knock out. This is a team that's really, and you can see it. And you're right. The Penguins showed it last night. I think what we're down, and during a regular season game, that you'd be watching in the NHL, you see momentum being taken all the time, and you don't often see it being grabbed back so quickly. But in the Stanley Cup Finals with these teams, you think, oh man, those 2 goals the Sharks just scored, the Penguins are just going to fall apart. They don't. These teams at this point, they don't fall apart. So that's what's so exciting about watching these teams play. Their confidence levels are so high that they realize.
Yeah, there were 2 things I really took out of it. When you could kill off a penalty and then a 6-on-4 at the end of the game and not give up the tying goal, that's a pretty big deal. But the other thing is, the last 2 rounds, the Penguins' strength of opponents was a lot harder than the Sharks. The Sharks may have had deep series, but their teams could not score at the same rate, and they weren't as fast as the Penguins. And I think the Penguins had, for that first game 1, they were used to playing a higher quality opponent. They really were.
And let me just be the skunk at the garden party here, because on that game-winning goal by Bonino, if it was called correctly, there should have been a penalty for knocking the stick out of Brent Burns' hands. There was no call. That was ridiculous. And the officials, granted, it was with about, I think, 15 seconds left in regulation, but the penalty was killed off for Pittsburgh, and the puck was thrown back into the Pittsburgh zone from, I believe, the face-off circle in the Pittsburgh defensive zone, and there was no icing called. That would have been another face-off in the zone. It's 1,000-to-1 shot that they would have won the face-off and got a chance, but it wasn't icing and it wasn't called. So I'm not saying that, because we know that this is probably one of the best crews that they could put together, but those were 2 calls that I think were missed.
Icing in general was they were calling that very interesting all game. It was when we talk about consistently inconsistent, that was clear as day for icing. And it's sometimes easy to look at those things. And I mean, I'm happy, Mike, you brought them up, because I think they are important, but it's easy to look at those when you lose and be like, man, those were the things. The Pens deserved to win that game. I think we all agree the Pens did deserve to win that game.
Yeah, I think the refs were making guys skate harder for the icing call. Like during the regular season, they're waving them off a lot easier because they don't want guys getting hurt, whatever. They know now this is it, and so they were making guys work harder to try and not just go the whole length for a touch-up if they could possibly beat the opponent. They were waiting until the last second to call icing.
Well, here's the thing, Russ, and you're dead on right. I didn't even think of this, but I'm glad you brought it up, Jill, because this is what was happening was this. When you're there, you get a real sense of how fast this game was being played. I mean, the speed of these 2 teams is unbelievable. I mean, going from watching NHL, even like the Flyers Capitals series, to this is just an enormous jump, right, in speed.
Yeah.
And because these guys are skating so fast and so hard, it is obvious when a guy is pulling up and trying to get an icing call. When he's not skating as hard, when he starts slowing down, it becomes obvious because you see the speed that they're going at all the time. And suddenly he can't skate any faster than that? No, like we just saw him fly out of the zone. So I think that's what's happening, to a degree. And I'm for that. I really think that icing should be real icing. I mean, I'm really mad that the NHL went back on what they had before. I talked about this before, but this is a pet peeve of mine. And after the lockout, we had this rule that they were calling all the time that a missed pass was not an icing. Right. If you made a pass and it just didn't connect, but it was an icing. As long as it was an attempted pass, it wasn't a definite clearing, because the spirit of the penalty of icing is that you're just trying to jump down to get relaxed pressure. But if you're trying to pass to someone getting out of the zone, that was not icing. And I don't know why that just disappeared, but it kind of did. To me, it went really hand in hand with getting rid of the 2-line pass, because by getting rid of the 2-line pass, you were going to see a lot more of these icing, but that were attempted passes. So I don't know, they got rid of that, but that it seemed like last night they were being really tough on the icing calls.
And something else from last night too that hasn't been touched on. Those two goalies to be on that level of a stage and both look so calm. I don't know how they're so young. This is their first time on this level of the stage, and my gosh, they look like nothing fazed them. That's impressive.
Yeah, Matt Murray had no pulse in that locker room. Like, he was just like a robot doing the interview, and nothing, not too high, not too low. Like, he is just, that is the way he is. In the game, you know, late in the game, the Marlowe-Thornton line, they were pummeling him with shots, and he just went in his progression and worked his way across the crease and just got the puck out to the safe area, and he was the same way in the locker room. Like, he wasn't fazed. Nothing is fazing him.
And Jones brings a lot of that kind of calm steadiness that Jonathan Quick does. I mean, you really do realize that he kind of studied under, mentored by Jonathan Quick. You know, that thing that Jonathan Quick has, that almost arrogant calmness to him. That, you know, I might look really, I look like you can beat me, but you're just not going to beat me, and that's the bottom line. And, you know, Martin Jones has definitely an element of that. He's a different kind of goalie, but he's a bigger goalie, but he's an element of that for sure. I mean, just these are, you know, I was sitting next to somebody who just said, yeah, these are just the two best teams in the NHL. You can tell by watching them play. I mean, they really, and now, you know, that's kind of debatable because, of course, any team that makes it this far is going to look really good. The confidence, because confidence goes up. I mean, we've seen in the past, Chicago has looked amazing in the finals, but the Sharks don't look like they should. Neither team looks like they got there by accident, but both these teams look like they are as good as you can get. The speed is there. To me, the first 5 minutes, the first 7 minutes or so, 10 minutes of the second period that the Sharks took over, though, that was telling to me, because that you're past the we're in all of being here of the first period, and the Penguins were just taking it to them, to the point where the Penguins really couldn't even touch the puck. Like the Sharks were possessing it to a level like very similar to what they did against Nashville, really, and St. Louis in their clinching games, where they just completely know that they have this level of crazy checking that the Sharks do, where it feels like there is no space. And when they did that on the Penguins, I think they're going to take solace in the fact that they dominated them. You know, they did. They found a way. They dominated as well as the Penguins dominated in the first period. And, you know, the third period came down to what I think we're going to see a lot of the rest of the series like, which is two teams sort of like, you know, back and forth, neither team dominating. But I think that's where it's going to head to. And
I think, you know, and this is sort of an obvious point, but I'll make it, is obviously I think the first half of the first period tomorrow is going to be a big thing for San Jose, because if they, you know, you can excuse it as, okay, we're starting the series, we don't know how fast Pittsburgh is, you know, this is our first time to the Stanley Cup final, we were caught flat-footed. Okay, you have no excuses now. You know they're going to come out with their hair on fire. So you have to prepare yourself for that. And if you're not prepared and they go up a goal or 2-0 and they're out hustling you, then you're not up to the task. So I mean, I think the first period for the Sharks tomorrow will be a very big thing.
Oh, it'll be huge. It feels like a 7-game series to me all the way right now. It feels as if whoever's desperate is going to have enough extra power to win that game.
Yeah, but if I'm the Sharks, I don't want it to go to 7. They don't want to play the Penguins in that building in the Game 7. They just don't.
I 100% agree with you on that one, Russ. I think if it goes 7 games and the Sharks had a chance to clinch in Game 6, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good for the Sharks if they're going 7. Pittsburgh, when they're playing in that building, it's just, and the Sharks are so, not young, but they're so new. It's Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, that's what you play for, quote unquote, but you've never been there before, and Pittsburgh has, and they've lost a Game 7 at home.
The Sharks are going to step on their throat at some point, and if they don't do it, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
But this is a great record.
The good news is that it looks like the Sharks do have that in them. We saw it a little bit in that second period. They're going to have to make some changes. They're going to have to change their game plan. They've shown that they can adapt. That is a positive sign, and that's something that if you get this far, you have to. Like Mike, you said it's going to be very telling in that first period, that first half of that first period, what team comes out, because that's going to be telling about this. I think the tone of the series.
Yeah, they've got to have the same urgency as if they were going to like an In-N-Out burger and they literally just shut the doors and they couldn't get in there. Like that same kind of urgency.
I like that.
Stop talking about Phil Kessel. Come on.
Yeah.
Who was, honestly, that was one name that you didn't hear them say a lot last night, which was interesting.
Right.
You've been hearing his name a lot
He was
throughout this playoffs.
he was really conspicuous by his absence last night. I really didn't.
I don't agree. I mean, watching the game. Okay, he made the one incredible move at the blue line, which was phenomenal, and then he was stoned by Jones on that other play by the side of the net. I mean, he could have easily scored that goal that would have won the game there. I mean, Jones made an unbelievable save on that play. I thought Phil Kessel was pretty.
I'm just saying at the level that he has played in the first 3 rounds, Zach. I mean, he really. It's one game. It's not everybody can stand on their head, but I thought compared to the way he was in the first 3 rounds, he really hadn't shown up as big as he had. But it's going to be a long series, so he's got time to do that.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Vlasic and Vlasic's play last night?
I thought it was fine. I mean, I think Vlasic is this great unknown to people on the East Coast, and they don't get to see him enough. And I thought he made all the right plays. I mean, again, I think Burns played great too, but he suffered because he had to cover up for Martin, and so I think that was a problem. Burns stopping Hagelin when Hagelin had that break was incredible because Hagelin got into another gear and Burns still caught him. And if he didn't, that would have been a 3-0 game, and it probably would have been a blowout. It probably would have turned into that.
Not like I'm saying this because I'm shocked, but Joe Thornton really, I thought, and especially in the second period and going forward, I mean, he was throwing his weight around, which when he's a big dude, but he's never had the reputation of doing that. And he had that one offensive chance where he broke in and fired a howitzer at Murray's left shoulder. He missed scoring, hitting the top corner by about 3 inches.
Yeah,
he's reminded me of Dave Andrechuk in 2004, because Andrechuk was always a big guy. He always went under that same kind of criticism that he didn't do enough with his body. And if you remember, Andrechuk was just such a great leader for Tampa in that Stanley Cup, and it seems like Thornton's picking up that same sort of vibe.
He is so good at slowing the game down when he is the puck. It's crazy. Thornton's ability to just to find people and to make passes because his concentration level is crazy. And the one thing I'll say about the Sharks, maybe moving on, is I wasn't changing because you usually don't hear this analyzed, but I feel like the Sharks are better at receiving passes than any team in the league. It's a weird thing to say, but there were lots of times when passes they're slightly behind or in front of them, and they still manage to pick it up and take it with speed. They really are good at that, and that it's one of those things that all 4 lines can do it. Like Wiggles and Hurdle, all these guys are very good at picking up passes, even if they're slightly behind them or slightly in front of them, and turning it into something. So, all right, let's move on to Hitchcock for a second because
wait, I have one more complaint about the Stanley Cup Final before we move on. Mike, were you watching? Which feed were you watching last night?
I was watching Emmerich and Olchek and Pierre during the game, and then switched to Hockey Night in Canada in between periods for the very reason that you discussed. They're horrific.
It was my major complaint. They talked a lot about how the Sharks had never been there. They kept showing you like leaderboards for players who have played the most game without a Stanley Cup Final appearance, and talking about this is a big stage for them. During the first period intermission, they go to Crosby to talk about how long the wait has felt for him. Why are we going to talk to Crosby when you have an entire team, an organization that's never been there before? That was just poor TV. You've been talking about it the entire period. Why not then talk to the people you're talking about? I get that Crosby's been there before and maybe he's a different perspective, but these are people who have never been there before. They have an interesting perspective, and you want to talk it up. That's just poor TV, poor journalism, poor whatever you want to say. That's representative and reflective of the whole intermission, that whole programming. It's frustrating as a fan to watch it and just so easily be like, why are you doing that? Why? There's so many other great people you could talk to about this.
The best thing I can say about the NBC broadcast is that Mike Emmerich is arguably the best in the game. I think he's fantastic. He makes a game exciting. I like Eddie Olchek is insightful. I wish he wouldn't talk so much about the Kentucky Derby or the Belmont State. But, that's fine. That's fine. That's his area of interest, and Pierre is Pierre. But the in-between periods, they just got to do something. I mean, I understand there is a value in having somebody annoying on a show. But
not annoying.
But my God, it's a Mike Milbury. Just I have to turn the channel. That's how bad it is now.
It's tough to watch, and if they want to talk about ratings, as a hockey fan, that's hard to watch. Talk about the casual viewer. The casual viewer, you have to love the sport to be able to put up with that. And if you don't love it, you're going to have a hard time, and you're going to be like, that Golden State Warriors game, that's more interesting.
Put the two broadcasts side to side, Jillian. After the Stanley Cup was over with, I turned on Game 7 of Golden State and Oklahoma City. And you had Charles Barkley and Shaq O'Neal yucking it up with Kenny Smith. And it's good television, and it's not all negative. It's a little positive. It's a little funny. It's this and that, and you're not getting that from NBC.
Do you know what else though? They don't take themselves so freaking seriously. My gosh, lighten up. Show a little bit of your personality. Is that who you are in real life? Because that's not interesting.
Oh, you don't want to see You don't want to see Milbury's real personality. He'll go into the crowd again. You don't want to do that.
But you know what? That might be more interesting. It might, because I'm sorry. It's so tough to watch because it's like they take themselves so serious about it, and it's like that's just, as a fan of the sport, I want you to be excited about it, and you don't sound excited. You don't.
If we're gonna see Mike Milbury's real personality, ban all footwear at Console Energy Center.
By the way,
I don't like to be negative. It's more of this is a frustrating point as a fan. It really is.
It's fair. Jeremy Roenick staying right next to me, right there in that room. Right there.
I hope he heard me.
That was funny last night. I got out. I went downstairs to get some Benadryl because I was having some sort of crazy allergic reaction to something. So I leave here and I walk outside, and Roenick's walking in. Hey, what's up? So he's right next. All right, Hitchcock. Let's talk Hitchcock for a second. Hitchcock has been extended for 1 year, and he says this is last year. He's done with coaching after this year. I'm glad. I think that's so cool to be able to call your own shot there for Hitch, because it's cool when a coach can. You never see this. You never see a coach just farewell for a year. Coaches always go as long as they possibly can until they're fired for the last.
Yeah, but it's a little bit awkward for the coaching staff because they're sort of in limbo. I mean, we've already heard. I think it was Brad Shaw was one of the assistant coaches, and he was only offered a 1-year deal, and Kirk Muller was only offered a 1-year deal, and I think Shaw said he's not coming back, and Muller is mulling offers from Anaheim, and maybe in the mix for Anaheim or Calgary. So I mean that's the thing. It's tough to put together a staff when you know that they're only going to be there for a year unless there's some assurances on the part of Doug Armstrong that the next coach is going to be part of that staff and he can just assume the job.
But maybe Armstrong doesn't even have assurances he'll be back.
Right. Yeah, I think that's so what I'm saying is it's a very uncertain situation. So I mean, in a way, I mean, I will grant you Hitchcock is a great coach and he deserves to go out on his own terms. But the 1-year thing, it's going to be tough for him to, unless he's kind of calling favors to people we know. People he knows, it's going to be tough for him to put a staff together unless there's assurances that one of the people.
You're never going to have problems kind of finding people to be assistant coaches in the NHL, though. I mean, there's so many coaches who that's the next logical step for them, and people won't hire just head coaches if you've never been on it, but you have been on an NHL staff. So I don't think they're going to have any problem getting assistants there. And I think Hitch actually likes the idea of working with different people. So I think for him, even though he has no disrespect for the people he's with, I think there's something to Hitch about, I can see him very much saying, just bringing in another group of people, just a new, fresher voice, because so he's not the only one talking to them. But this is my thing about Hitchcock. I've long thought this, that he is the John Madden of hockey. That if he retires, he should be the guy who takes over for people like, say, Mike Milbury, and in between periods or whatever, and this is the guy you want doing this, because he is hilarious. I've talked to him so many times about players one-on-one. He has really interesting ideas and very, very strict, like, I don't want to say stereotypes of players. Like, there's some players he believes that this is what it's hard to change his mind over. And, he just has that same kind of personality that John Madden has in football, who would be so perfect for this job. I think like NHL 2019 could be called Hitchcock hockey instead of Madden football. I think I would so much go with Hitchcock hockey. I think that would be amazing. He is the perfect. So I think he's not necessarily going to be within the game, but in the intermissions, like a Don Cherry for America type person. He's that guy.
I mean, we've all seen his bench interviews. They're so candid. It's a little bit refreshing because I know sometimes we want to see them say what they're really feeling, quote unquote, and he comes as close to that as anybody.
Well, he knows he has his ideas. I mean, there are some great stories about things he's done in the past to try to determine who the leaders are on his team. My favorite one ever was this story that I heard where he put all of his players into a room and said, "You got to finish this." And he handed him a test, a basic test, like on a piece of paper. He said, "This is your IQ test. We're giving you all IQ tests." He says, "Under no circumstances are you allowed to leave the room until everyone's done. Then I will come in and you'll take your test and you can go. No circumstances you're allowed to leave." So he gives him the IQ test, and then he pumps smoke into the room, to smell like something is burning, to smell like there's a fire in the building, like significant amounts of smoke in through the vents. And then you hear like a siren off the side, and he wanted to see, what player was the first to stand up and just take control. He wanted to see who his leaders were, and this is his way of doing it. Because crowds, there's a huge conformity aspect to us in society. It's not for all people. It's like if you're told not to do something, you won't. A lot of people won't ever do it.
Right.
They'll stay with the building's burning down around them until they really see the flames. They're going to see like, oh, I'm not supposed to leave under any circumstances. He wanted to see who the leaders were, because the leaders would be the ones who stand up and get up. I thought that's like what you're talking about here with Hitchcock.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting, and we've talked about it in relation to Hitchcock and David Backus. Hitchcock coming back for one more year. Backus is a free agent this year. He's not going to sign a one-year contract, so.
How do you know?
Well, yeah. It would be highly unusual, Russ, for somebody looking for probably his last long-term deal of his career to sign a one-year deal to stay with Hitchcock.
This whole situation is a little bit unusual, don't you think? I mean, this is a team that went to they were one game away from the Stanley Cup.
Hitchcock is able to talk them all into coming back and giving it one more go. He might be able to do that.
Yeah, I think he could. I don't see why he wouldn't.
Now, if he does that, then it's bad news for guys like Jordan Binnington and guys who are trying to break into that lineup, because it's going to be near impossible to do it.
Right.
And maybe bad news for Vladimir Tarasenko.
No, how's it bad news for him?
I'm joking.
That was going to be an interesting one. I liked your reaction right away, Russ.
So we also got the State of the Union yesterday, which I got to sit 2 rows from, as Gary Bettman told everybody what the heck was going on, and with Bill Daly, and the dynamic between Bettman and Daly always cracks me up. It's one of the funniest dynamics in all of sports. And there were a couple moments yesterday where Gary said, "Ask Bill a question," like that kind of thing, and then someone asked Bill a question on the Olympics, and Gary's like, "Unless you want me to answer that one," Bill's like, "I want you to answer that one." So there was a funny moment with that. It was about the Olympics. The Olympic situation. Suddenly, the gauntlet was thrown down, man. And this was like we had heard, oh, maybe they're going to the Olympics, maybe they're not going to the Olympics. Suddenly, there was no question what was happening here. Unless they put the money up, the NHL's not going to the Olympics. And
this has been the direction that it's been going for the last 6 months.
It's never been said.
Yeah, now it's definitive.
The NHL doesn't do things like this. The NHL does not boldly attack people in press conferences. They don't. That's not their style. For them to do this it was a seriously calculated thing that they thought about. We are going to go in there and we are going to lay it down.
Here's the thing. Here's what I've learned, Ek. And the NHL gave their side, but we didn't know the other side. So I learned the other side on my Facebook page, and the other side is that the IOC and the IIHF have about a $35 million budget for like 20-something tournaments this year, like 28 tournaments. So to them, they're looking at it like, we've got to stretch our dollars to cover all these tournaments, because they're not really making money on a lot of these tournaments, if any at all. Right. And so that's where they're looking at it like, we're having a cash shortfall, and then the NHL's looking at it like, well, the owners don't really want the players to go, so unless you're paying for insurance, we're not going to send them. And so they're at that point now, I think, of no return. And he didn't want to say that, but they look like they're at the point of no return for this one and for the one after that, too. That's the feeling, because there's no talks going on with China. And you would think at some point they would have at least had an email or a discussion like, let's do this in the next couple of years, have a meeting. Nothing. No talks.
And what was the line that Bettman had? Is like, we're not going to pay to interrupt our own season, something like that.
Right. I mean, you're not going to pay for the. They're not going to pay for the luxury of having their own season interrupted.
Yeah. So I mean, there it is, right there. I mean, I think, and maybe I'm overemphasizing it, but in the wake of Tavares getting hurt at the Olympics a few years ago, in the wake of the interrupting the season for 2 weeks, down the stretch, the fact that it's going to be 8 time zones away in South Korea and then in China doesn't have any impact of growing the game unless you consider viewership in China. I just don't think there's really a benefit for the league, and I think what's going to end up happening is it's going to go back to the way the Olympics was, at least for the next few times. It's going to go back to the way the Olympics was in, say, 1994, where you have like junior players and Eric Lindros, or 92, who was holding out, and Peter Nedved.
Like a mixture of the World Championships and the Spengler Cup,
it's going to be that.
And somebody will try and make a comeback, because that always happens too.
You're right, but here's the thing. Here's the other thing that was really interesting, because when the Olympics has always been sold to us, okay, the concept of whether we're going or not going to the Olympics has always been sold to us as a thing that the players want to go, but the owners don't want to go. Right. And that's always been the message, right?
Right.
Well, yesterday the players weren't even talked about in that thing. It's as if so the owners, if you're not paying for it, forget it. We're not doing it. So which they can do, of course, because someone has to pay for it. The players aren't going to pay for it.
It's a fight the players can't win at this point, and they decided to sort of acquiesce.
The NHL did throw its gap down. Like, it's really nice you want to go to the Olympics and all, but forget about normally they're much more polite about it. Yeah. They're always like, we know that what it means to play for your country. We know how much these players it means to players like that. This is no, this is it. You're not going because they're not paying for it. And it's like,
I don't think it's going to hurt the growth, quote unquote, growth of the sport. The game is still going to be played in the Olympics. It just makes the NHL to just anybody who's looking at it and doesn't know the full story. The NHL is the one who looks a little like, what are you trying to do? It looks a little. And then you say, oh, they're playing in the middle of their season. People might understand that. But then with the NHL trying to do the World Cup of Hockey, everyone's immediately comparing it to the World Cup soccer. And so it just looks like the NHL is trying to control a little bit more, which it makes sense. But I don't think it's necessarily bad for the sport in general. The Olympics, they still are going to play ice hockey, so it's not like it's not going to be there. And winning the gold medal in the Olympics is still winning the gold medal in the Olympics. So.
Oh, yeah. I'm one that doesn't believe that the NHL picks up a lot of people after the Olympics. I just don't think they do.
No.
I think there are Olympic watchers, and then there's NHL fans, and they're different. They're very different, because a lot of friends that I know never watch the NHL, but like watching the NHLers in the Olympics and talk about it for those couple of weeks, and then go back to dormancy.
Right. Great. TJ Oshie got a contract from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Other than that, I don't know how much of a benefit there was to the Olympics in Sochi for Team USA. And I heard some theory that some people are rooting for the World Cup of Hockey this September to be a financial disaster, so that would make the NHL go back. I think they're complete non sequiturs. The thing is that the PA, the NHL, and the IIHF are benefiting from the World Cup of Hockey, and they're not benefiting diddly from the Olympics, other than exposure.
Everything is World Cup of Hockey.
There's a secondary. I was going to say, there's a secondary storyline now brewing, because we all were kind of wondering, hey, Slava Voinov was on that list.
Yeah.
Can he play? And so the NHL, all Bettman said was he is still suspended. He didn't say he can't play. He didn't say if he plays there's going to be a problem. He didn't say if he plays we're going to sue him. He just said he spoke to the Russian Federation and let them know that he's still suspended. But to be honest, the Russian Federation, there's no transfer agreement with these leagues anymore, and if they want to just sort of overstep their bounds, they could have Slava Voinov show up, and I'm not sure anything can happen. I don't think
there is anything. I mean, I know the NHL is putting it on, but I don't think that it's not the NHL. It's the World Cup of Hockey. It's a separate event.
No, it is the NHL. It's
not. He's suspended from the NHL. He's not. Is that suspension also from the World Cup of Hockey?
This is the NHL's party, though, and they can say who comes, who doesn't come, and they're the ones who are putting the bill for all this stuff. I mean, all the insurance that's being paid for on this thing is by the NHL. This is them. Now, what I could see, and I heard this morning some tough talk from a source of mine in Russia about how if Voinov's not allowed to play, maybe the Russians don't send a team to the World Cup. And that could be interesting if that plays out, because then what do you do? You know,
I mean, I don't think he should play. I particularly don't want him there. I don't think that he does anything good. Maybe on the ice he does, but I think his story was one of the NHL was lucky they didn't really have to do too much. It kind of took care of itself. So I don't mind if he doesn't play.
But I wonder if the Russians will do that.
Well, if the Russians don't show up, maybe they'll take the NHL will take up John Scott on his proposal to put all the rejected players on the team. Funny. You can have Phil Kessel and Shattenkirk and Justin Falk, and there you go.
And there you have your next Kentucky blog. Moving on to
nothing. Never mind. Can we mention expansion?
Let's talk about expansion. Yep. I personally have been expanding for the last year and trying to lose weight, but I think that what we need to do as far as expansion goes, the NHL, the most interesting thing about yesterday for me came towards the end of the expansion talks when they talked about, okay, what are the expansion rules set? And he said, yeah, the rules are set, basically. Maybe a couple things. And then Bettman interrupted Daly and said, understand that whether we expand and the expansion rules, they all intertwined. So that suddenly made me think, okay, wait a second. Is this a negotiation? Are we looking at like the expansion rules being adjusted so that people on the expansion committee agree with the expansion idea? That was something that just to me really started to
draft. It's all about the expansion draft, and I think it's all about the teams not wanting to protect the players that they have bad contracts for. And if they're going to have to protect those guys, that's going to be a big problem for them. And I think they're trying to sort of say, well, listen, if you want expansion, you're going to have to soften up on that stance, or maybe we're going to vote down expansion this year. And that's why Bettman said if it's not this year, maybe it's going to be next year. We can't tell you yet until June 20th, 21st.
Well, a couple of the things that were interesting was the fact that they said, like, you know, say for example, a team like Chicago, and I'm just pulling this team out of thin air, but a team that has a lot of no-move clauses on their roster. If they have too many that they have to protect, you know, if they have more than 8 or more than 10. Daly insinuated that there would be players or picks that would have to be provided to the expansion team to make up for the fact that they were outside the norm of what, you know, could be protected. So, you know, there is some leeway and some negotiation going on here. The one thing I thought was interesting was they pretty much did away with the provision about the amount of salary cap that you would have to expose in the expansion draft. That because the talk was at least 25% of your team's salary cap would have to be exposed to the draft, and now that's being dropped because, I mean, I'm not sure why, but it seems to be a fluid situation. But
and I just got a text from somebody right now who said this is not for me, but he said, consider this. Another year gives teams another year to figure out how to protect players.
That's true.
Another year also gives Seattle to get their game together.
Yeah, and I think that, which you know, I think inevitably what they're trying to do, though, I have heard that Quebec is in. Like despite there's been so much talk, it's just Vegas, it's just Vegas, it's just Vegas. I have heard that it is Vegas and Quebec, but if you wait 2 more years, it could be Vegas, Quebec, and Seattle. That there's a possibility of that happening. That the NHL is not just looking at 2 teams; they're really looking at 4. I heard, and that there's 3. You know, 3 could come within the next couple of years.
Well,
Seattle just like about a month ago shut down essentially the arena project. Like Seattle, yeah. And they would love it not just for the NHL. They really want their NBA team back, and they still can't get it. So I don't see Seattle happening.
I talk to people in Seattle about that, and there's a chicken or egg thing going on there, right? Because they're saying we're having a tough time with this arena project, but if the NHL would give us a team, we wouldn't be. Then we would be able to get the funding needed.
But this is
not even the funding. They have to shut down a street. They have to essentially shut down everything on a street. That was what they. That's what they said no to.
But why is it on the NHL? The NBA owes them a team. They basically let a billionaire just move a team for no reason. I went to a Supersonics game the year that they were moving, that we didn't know that they were moving, and I was in an area where it was packed. The arena was great. I went to practice. The fans were tremendous fans, and they just abandoned them. So that
owner did have to pay. He had to pay for that because they filed a lawsuit, so he had to pay. And they wanted to, and it's a great city for sports. An NHL team and an NBA team would be wildly successful there. I just don't see it happening because the city council has to agree on a lot of things to make that arena happen. And the last time they started bringing an arena in their Soto area, it got shut down. It's going to keep getting shut down. I don't see it happening. I don't, and I love Seattle, and I want it to happen there. So that it does make me sad to say that because I think those teams would be successful there.
Well, like if there was expansion and it was 3 teams, as you said, then that would lend to the possibility of that 3. Like you'd have 3 conferences of 11 teams. You could have a 3-conference setup. There wouldn't be so much of that problem with does Columbus go back to the West or does Detroit go back into the West, because those teams would be part of a Central Division, say.
I would love that.
Yeah, I mean that would make it possible, but Jillian's point is right on. I mean, right now the situation in Seattle doesn't sound, I mean, if the NHL awarded them a team, they would probably have to be. They probably wouldn't have put a shovel in the ground until they are awarded the team, and they'd probably have to play in the Key Arena for a year or two, which I'm sure the NHL wouldn't want to do, but that would have to if that was the price they would.
Here's what I think. I still think Vegas is getting their team this year. I still think the NHL owners want to pocket the expansion fee, and I think it is going to happen. I think it is just a negotiation. That's all it is. And ultimately, though, I think it's going to go through. I just think they wanted to sort of create some doubt there, so we don't all think, oh, this is like a done deal and it's gonna. But
not for I think
it's a done deal.
Well, but just think of it this way, Russ. They have to set up the parameters of the expansion draft now, because if they only expand by 1, when they do expand again, they can just go back to the expansion rules and put them in place. They can't keep moving them back and forth.
But here's the thing: I don't think any of this. I don't think they're keeping it from us because of some big reveal. I think they're keeping it, which is the impression that they think they want people to have. I think they're keeping it from us because you were right onto something before when you said, Russ, that they want to. Whenever you're negotiating anything, right? You're negotiating anything at all. You want the other side to think you can walk away, right? That you can walk away. Like, I don't have to buy this car. Okay, I can do it. So when they say this in one of these press conferences, telling the people who they're trying to get commitment from on the expansion team that they're able to walk away, more so than telling us, because they keep saying we know how frustrating it is for you, we know what you want to know, and the reason that they do not want us to know what they're negotiating. That's what they don't want us to know.
Well, but there's two other things at play here though too. Yeah. Daly was a little coy about the cap, but obviously the cap's not going up much. So maybe it'll be $1 million, and maybe that's it, and that's why he wouldn't say it's staying the same.
Russ, it was. I mean, basically, it was subtle pressure on the PA to use the escalator clause, because when he says relatively flat, that means nothing. It's staying at 71.4. So if you want money in free agency, you better jack it up, boys, because otherwise it's going to sit right where it was this year.
I think they'll throw him a bone, and it'll be a little bit, but they definitely are going to vote for the escalator. I could see it happening.
Which means more escrow, which they hate.
Yeah, they do hate it. The more they are so determined to tell us it could take longer. Every press conference they told us there are 3 ways this could go. Give an expansion team, or give an expansion team in a lot further out. So
one of all of the possible options that are physically available.
Right. Not like anything. I can say yes.
They're going to have to say no for sure.
Right. So, but they're so obsessed with that other part of it being further out, that I think that that's a real option. I really think that that's a real thing. Like, they've said it so many times. Although the one thing I will say is last night, at one point when I think it was, I forget who asked, doesn't matter, who said is 17-18 possible at this point? They were quick to say no, it's 17-18 is very possible still. So,
I also think they need to be careful of doing it too far out if it is going to be Vegas, because right now there is actual interest in Vegas for them to have a team. You keep putting that out, and all of a sudden people stop caring. All of a sudden that deposit you put down for your season tickets is just money that you no longer are accounting for. 3 years go by, 4 years go by. You're like, whatever, I'm over it.
I mean, let's just say this. I mean, if you're discouraged by the chances of the NHL going to the Olympics based on what Bettman and Daly said yesterday, you have to be encouraged that there is going to be an announcement, before the NHL awards, the week of the NHL draft in Vegas. It's set up too perfectly for. I mean, they wouldn't put the deadline on June 22nd and say, "Oh, we're going to stiff you, Vegas." They're putting that deadline there because they're going to have the showgirls walk out and say, "Welcome to the NHL." It's set up that way. It makes too much sense.
Actually, somebody asked Bettman about the NFL because they're getting close now to having a team there, and they brought up the NBA, but the NBA is not really close, but the NFL is, and so you could tell that he wants to be first. That was obvious.
Well, the Raiders.
I think being first is important too.
The Raiders signed a 2-year, a 1 year with an option in Oakland to stay in Oakland, so it's not going to happen until at least 2017, 2018.
Right. No, that's a good point. I saw that too, because he said it's not like we'll be devastated if there's an NFL team there, but the way he said it was really like, yeah, but we will be really upset about it.
They need to be the first there. I think if they're going to do it, they should be the first.
Yeah. The first pro team in that city gets the red carpet rolled out for them, and if they're competing with the NFL right away, they're in trouble.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And with that red carpet, you get $20 of free chips.
And also, my question would be, what is the difference in ticket prices for the NHL and NFL? Because NHL has their ticket prices aren't cheap, generally speaking, and they're probably not going to be at a brand new, nice arena in Vegas.
But there'll be casino comps too. It'll be worked in.
Yeah, but if you're competing with the NFL right away, all of a sudden, maybe the ticket price, the differences aren't enough really to be like, oh, well, it's cheaper for the NHL. All of a sudden, it's like, it's only like 20, 40 more bucks for the NFL. Let's do that.
If the NHL goes to Vegas, you may actually get me to go to Nevada to cover a Leaf game. Otherwise, I have no interest.
I think it's very interesting. I think it's an interesting. People wanted to talk about Nashville, and we've seen success in Nashville. I think it'd be great to see hockey be successful in Vegas. I think it is possible, but we'll see.
I have doubts, but we will see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like it in Phoenix. I really do. I love the fact that the NHL's in Phoenix. Vegas is a good natural rival for them, and I know Vegas is not just gambling. I mean, people throw this out. Vegas is a big city. With a really thriving suburbs, and there's a lot there. So, there's a lot of people there, and more if you have a team there, you'll get Austin Matthews out of there. So there's a lot of benefits there. Right?
They need to be successful, or experience moderate success very quickly, or else there's a problem. But I think if they can experience some level of success,
can I also criticize? And I think it was Bill Daly who said the most ridiculous comment of the entire state of the game situation when he said that based on the parameters that they're putting together, that the expansion team put together, they've run models, and they said that team could compete for a playoff spot right away. No. Unless you're expanding the playoff pool to 31 teams, good luck. Not happening.
I mean, and I'm all for models running, but I think that the concept is completely.
I'm all for models.
All right. a little stuff you should know, because people have been asking about like why we're doing more of this, because obviously we're busy, and but I want to do a little stuff you should know. Today I want to do the oranges of the Stanley Cup, which I think is something that we don't really talk about too often, but here we are in the Stanley Cup Finals. We sort of know it, but do you really know it? That's the idea. So here we go. Okay, so this is what I've got. After the Lord Stanley of Preston, remember Preston is in England. Canada was part of England until I think 2016 or 12 or something like that. But recently, Canada just left England. That's not true either. After the Lord Stanley of Preston was appointed by Queen Victoria as Governor General of Canada on June 11th in 1888. 888. He and his family became highly enthusiastic about ice hockey. Okay, and he was the first. Hold on 1 second. Shoot. Once I got a call coming in. I hate to do this to you guys. Sorry, this is important. 1 second. Darn it. 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Well, I was going to say, I have something I can add in the meantime.
Please do.
I don't know if you guys saw the mayor's bets between San Jose and Pittsburgh, and I just think that's something good that should be noted, because also there was another one with like the city council, more or less, where they also are collecting donations for the Boys and Girls Club, and both will receive the donations they get. It's just the other person has to deliver it in the winning team's jersey. So,
well, if part of the bet was Iron City beer, turn the bet down.
Well, no. What I like about this one though is that it's not about food or about beverages. That's like so outdated. That's so boring anymore. You expect it, so it's kind of nice to see him doing something different. That's what I think.
Okay, half of our panel is on the phone here.
So, Mike, how's life?
Oh, it's wonderful.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, that was the Stamkos thing. Okay, that was the source that I've been waiting for. So that's why I'm bringing a story on Stamkos this afternoon. So it'll get kind of interesting. So let me. Goodness, I apologize. That was really crazy, and I've been waiting for that person for a couple of days. All right.
There you go.
So Lord Stanley, okay, decides. And he becomes enthusiastic about hockey, and then he was first exposed in the 1988 Winter Carnival in Montreal, which still goes on. The Winter Carnival in Montreal is a fantastic carnival.
Yeah.
That would be the 1888. Sorry, not the 1988. I'm sorry, I'm thrown. Two of his sons played ice hockey, actually. Two of Lord Stanley's sons played ice hockey, and in what later became the OHA, basically, and that formed the OHA.
They were first-round draft picks of the Ottawa Silver 7.
His two sons' names, Arthur and Algernon. Algernon Stanley, apparently. He doesn't look anything like the Lord Stanley that walks magically through the locker room door that is greeted by Backstrom in that famous commercial, where we see where you see the Backstrom sitting there and Lord Stanley walk through, and Backstrom says, "Who are you?" in his best acting, as opposed to "Who are you?" or "Who are you?" Because "Who are you?" It's not that Lord Stanley. Nothing like that. So this is Lord Stanley's quote that gets the Stanley Cup going. "I've been thinking for some time that it would be a good thing if there were a Challenge Cup, which should be held from year to year by the champion hockey team in the Dominion," which of course was Canada. There does not appear to be any such outward sign of championship at the present, and considering general interest, which masses now elicit, and the importance of having the game played fairly and under the rules generally recognized, I am willing to give a cup, which shall be held from year to year by the winning team. I am not quite certain that the present regulations governing the arrangement of the matches give the entire satisfaction, and it would be worth considering whether they could or not be arranged so that each team would play once at home and play once on the place where their opponents hail from. So originally the Stanley Cup was supposed to be a best-of-2 series. I don't know how that works exactly. But yeah, so soon afterwards, Stanley purchased what is frequently described as a decorative punch bowl. But which silver expert John Combe identified as a rose bowl made in Sheffield, England, and sold by London silversmith G.R. Collins and Company. Now Boodle and Dunthorne, if you're looking to buy your own Stanley Cup. Boodle and Dunthorne, that's me, the original one. They bought it for 10 guineas, not guinea pigs, but 10 guineas. Oh, man. Equal to 10.5 pounds sterling, the U.S. equivalent of $48.67. That's what they pay for the Stanley Cup, $48.67, which is equal to, in today's terms, to roughly $1,282.
Or one meal of Phil Kessel.
Or 1 year's salary for the average Hockey Buzz blogger. It got the words Dominion Hockey Challenge Cup written on it, engraved on the one side on the outside rim, and from Stanley of Preston on the other side. Originally, Stanley intended the cup should be awarded to the top amateur hockey team in Canada. Okay, but he decided the acceptance of the challenges from others teams, and he made 5 preliminary regulations. And I'll end with this: the 5 regulations that originally were supposed to. It's like a David Letterman top 10 list. Ready? Number 5. Okay. The winner shall return the cup in good order when required by the trustees so that it may be handed over to any other team which may win it. Number 2, each winning team, at its own expense, may have the club name and year engraved on the silver ring fitted on the cup. So you're supposed to pay for it yourself, which I don't think they do anymore. Number 3, the cup shall remain a challenge cup and should not become property of any one team, even if won more than once. Number 4, the trustees shall maintain absolute authority in all situations or disputes over the winner of the cup. And number 5, one of the existing trustees resigns or drops, the remaining trustee will not get the. There you have it. And that is how we ended up with the Stanley.
I will tell you this: I think the teams do still pay for the engraving because I think that's why they vote on who could be on it and who can't.
Maybe you're right.
It's also limited space. They have there's a certain amount of players that can be put on the.
And what's the year? A ring is equivalent to how many? I'm trying to remember how many years I was on a ring, but all I know is that we're 2 years away from Gordie Howe's name being taken off the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many years per ring, but I would.
If you go to the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, you can see the rings which are displayed on a wall. They're I believe, right? I'm not right about this. I saw it.
They're in a like an ante room where you can see the.
You can see the original cup there. Yeah.
Rings that were taken off, and the original cup, this is not. Of course, now
pretty soon the Leafs just won't exist on the Stanley Cup, which is fine by me.
The smallest city ever to win the Stanley Cup, Kenora, Ontario. The Kenora, Ontario, a population of 4,000, when the Kenora Thistles. What a name! The Thistle. Nothing inspires fear like a thistle.
You get a thistle under your buttocks, and you tell me if you feel that way afterward.
They won the cup in January of 1907. Aided by future Hall of Famers Art Ross and Bad Joe Hall. The Thistles defeated the Montreal Wanderers in a 2-game, Montreal Drifters essentially, in a 2-game.
He was so bad, he was good.
I know. There you go. So that was it. There's your history about what you should know about the Stanley Cup. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll talk again tomorrow. There's no game tonight. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.